Yes, dear students. Again, indeed, in the present state of physical science, it is absurd to pretend that its categories must prescribe the type of all legitimate description and explanation, for these are in perpetual flux. In the palmy days of materialism, it was common form to assert dogmatically that the universe consists of atoms of matter, that all energy was the momentum of such atoms, and all chain the transmission of momentum by impact of one hard and resilient particle upon another. But those days of the billiard ball universe, are gone forever, save perhaps in the imagination of a few belated biologists who have picked up their views of physical science from old-fashioned textbooks. All the categories of physical science, matter, energy, motion, momentum, mass and space, and time themselves, are in question, and no man can say whether any one of them will emerge alive from the fermenting chaos of modern physical speculation. This being the state of affairs, it is surely premature to say the least of it, to assume that human nature and human action are capable of being adequately explained or described in terms of the categories of physical science. The only wise course for the psychologist, as for the biologist in general, is the bold one of asserting the relative independence of his science and his right to choose and use the categories that are most profitable for his purpose, the better understanding and control of human nature. Let him have to the future the most difficult task of harmonizing the conclusion of the biological and the physical science, while keeping an open mind and a critical attitude toward all attempts in that direction. In this book, then, I shall attempt to show my readers how we may describe human nature and human experience, and in approximate, in a scientific rather than a metaphysical sense, explain the facts by the aid of working hypotheses, which makes no claim to be ultimately true, but claim merely to be useful at the present time. The hypothesis to be adopted must determine the method of description, and the language of description will imply these hypotheses. I shall try to avoid the language implying the hypothesis which I have adversely criticized in the foregoing pages, namely ideas, consciousness as a stuff compounded of sensations, or other elements or units of composition, and mechanical reflexes as the units of action. It is not easy to adhere strictly to this program for the language of ideas and sensations, in common not only to most psychologies but also the literary and the common sense traditions. And I must pray for indulgence if here and there I should lapse into these convenient and familiar but misleading modes of speech. Why we talk sometimes rudely, in sense, in manners, ill-mannered. Why we face misconceptions, mean tiny, in target is so near in front of us. Why? It's naturally processed. I will indicate here in brief case, outline the hypotheses that seem to be most acceptable and the terms which we may most profitably use. First, what is to be our attitude toward physical and physiological knowledge, especially our knowledge of the structure and functions of the nervous system. We have seen that many psychologists at the present day have given up altogether the use of the term mind, soul, and subject, recognizing that the mind can be profitably described neither as merely a bundle of faculties nor as a more or less organized mass of ideas, regarded as entering things that pass in mind and in air out of consciousness. They have substituted for the mind the nervous system or the brain, with the result that we have glanced at. Now, if we refuse to follow this modern practice, we must go back to or adhere to the older practice and still speak the mind, for what the older psychology means by the mind was as something which expresses its nature, powers, and functions in two ways. First, the modes of individual experience; two, the modes of bodily activity, the sum of which constitutes the behavior of the individual. Thank you so much.